Hey there guys, Raymond here, also known as Ray Vision, and check it out today. Well, we are going to be playing some Forza Motorsport 6. Now, if you guys haven't seen the video that went up either yesterday or 2 days ago, I don't know how the upload schedule is going to work this week exactly yet. You may have seen that me and Marco, while we are doing another Top Gear challenge this week, and this week we decided to do Dodge. I ended up taking the Dodge Dart. Now, the results haven't gone up because part 2 is going to come out later, but I love that car so much, and even if I didn't do an intentional drift build, as usual, I ended up with a car that was drifty, so I decided to go ahead and make a very legitimate drift build for this car, and what I turned out with, well, I was very happy. Now, there are a few things that you could change if you want to make it a little bit better of a drift car and a little less authentic. I went for a supercharger. Honestly, if you want this car to be able to power through the big corners, like the last one on the Indianapolis drift track, you will need to put the turbochargers at the place of the supercharger because it just does not have the power. I also put sport tires on this build. I ended up switching those out and putting some regular street tires at the place of the sport tires. After that, I did some fine tuning with it after a couple races, and this is a really fun drift car. I will say though, if you do take off the sport tires, it will make it a lot easier to spin out and a lot more of a tricky drift car, but then you can score a lot bigger points. In general, this car, fairly easy to drift with, and honestly, I love it. It sounds amazing. It looks cool as fuck. I find it's a really cool looking car. It's American muscle, so I don't see why that's a bad thing. And so as usual, if you want to be able to download this, it will be under Ray Drift, Drift, and Best for Speed, or you can just follow me as a creator on Forza. That's also an option. So, with regards to everything else, if you have any suggestions for future drift builds, leave those in the comments below. I always take a look at the comments before I do a drift build. It's always nice to see what you guys are looking at. I always try and mix your interests with mine, so I am happy, because let's face it, if I'm into the drift build, I do a lot better. So this is my little beginning of any drift race tradition. If I don't start pole position or within the first few cars, I don't see a point in going out right away and trying to race everyone. The reason for that is especially on the track like Catalunya School, where it's very dense track. Having a bit of trouble here in the first corner, just getting used to the car. It's really difficult to, how do I say, for Catalunya, it's very difficult to race in the traffic. And so, or just in general, that's why I always like to leave a bit of a gap build and then slowly force my way. So I was in 22nd place, and after 2 corners, I was in 9th. And don't forget, I'm like at least 5 or 6 corners behind everyone, so I was doing pretty well. I actually managed to come up pretty far up in the rankings. I did do a couple spin outs, which caused me to lose some points here and there. But overall, this car, really freaking solid. I mean, like, it posts some massively good laps. Obviously, I replayed this track after, actually, in an online lobby. After I switched out the sport tires, I ended up spinning out a lot more on the track overall, and right now I'm having trouble with that last corner holding it because, well, I don't have enough power and or too much grip. After switching out the sport tires, still on supercharger, I was actually able to get a higher top lap, but I wasn't able to be as consistent because it was a lot more twitchier, a lot more prone to spinning out. After a little bit of time practicing, I got really good. Honestly, if I had to rank my top drift builds that I've made so far in Forza Motorsport 6, I would have to go with number 1, the Alfa Romeo 4C. It came out not too long ago. When I take that car out, I can do some serious damage point wise. It is the only car. It's super light and it has a ridiculous amount of power, and so it just allows me to do so much. It's super flexible around the corners. My second best, I'd have to go with the Aston Martin Vanquish, and then my third best would have to be this, in my opinion. It's my personal opinion, personal preference. There's a little bit of personal preference for the cars in there too. I mean, like, I really like the Dodge Dart. It's probably not necessarily the best drift build, but it's also very recent in my memory, so it's probably a little bit higher ranked because of those reasons. And right here in front of me is the reason why I do not lead with the whole entire pack, because if one of them crashes and you're tailing like they are, and this guy's being a dickwad on the inside, people who race in online drift races are freaking assholes sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll just be like killing it, first place, and then I'm about to lap the guy who's in last place, and then he just does not stop drifting. No, he accelerates really hard into the corner, brakes late, and then just slams into me after I pass him, like, kind of like that guy did. And that just happens a lot, which is really annoying. So as you see there, I let people go. It's better to take your time in drift races, okay? Yeah, you might not necessarily get first place every time, but I mean, like, the guy in first place this game was 55,000 points ahead of me. My opinion is probably that he did not get spun out once by anyone or nobody crashed into him, and he was very lucky with that. Because I've come in first on this track, and I'm sure a lot of people have. It's just about whether or not people hit you and stuff and other stuff. Look at me racing up for third place. I really like the last corner on this track, especially when you can nail it. Unfortunately, the sports tire there is a little bit lacking. So with all that in mind, guys, I want to thank you all for watching.